another episode of Popcorn and Parachute Pants, a podcast where we discuss the very best of movies of the 1980s. And now, here are your hosts, Mr. Fingaz and Nick Rosario.
I never realized until today how long that fade out is on that intro. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? We've been gone for a while, but we're back. It's your boys.
Yes, we are.
I am Mr. Fingaz coming to you from Zagnet Central, that handsome fella over there, all the way in the Windy City of Chicago, Chi-Town, Illinois. My co-host, Mr. Nick Rosario. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, good morning, afternoon, wherever we are. Windy City is correct because it was said it was 40 degrees out, and with that wind, it felt like it was about 20. So, it's a good day in Chicago. The sun's out. It's not snowing, so feeling happy about that. So, always good when there's no snow.
You talk about no snow in Chicago. How about it snowed a week and a half ago here in Oklahoma City? It got like 3 inches and shut the whole city down.
Oh, I heard. Yeah, no, I heard about that. My friend lives in outside of Shawnee, so I know I heard about all that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, here's the ultimate question: Are they a Sooner fan or are they a Cowboys fan? Which one are they?
She's a Cowboy. She went to Oklahoma State. So she's a Cowboy fan. Yeah, she's a Cowboy fan.
Oh, so I know she's got to be loving all the craziness going on with Lincoln Riley. But that's a different story because for a different podcast, which we might happen to be on. But we're here today. You know what we do. We talk 80s movies, the best of the 80s. Episode 1 was the absolute all-time Eddie Murphy classic, Coming to America. Today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are very happy to be here. There's the callback because we're going to be talking about another incredible 80s classic, Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, John Rhys Davies, you know it, you love it. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, Raiders.
And you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This movie was a complete movie. It set the bar. We talked about this, in the green room before we came on. It basically set the bar for every other adventure film to come. And probably for some of those for the thrillers, the spy thrillers as well, as far as in terms of action sequences and stunts.
Yeah, yes.
Like this movie was ahead of its time, even in the 1980s. But for those of you that are completely unfamiliar, if you've been living under a rock for the last 40 some odd years since this movie came out, an adventuring professor of archaeology goes on a mission to find the lost Ark of the Covenant, the very Ark of the Covenant that is described in the Bible. And it is a race to beat the Nazis to get to it. And all sorts of adventure, mayhem, and hilarity ensue. So I'm gonna defer to you, Nick. We just go jump right into it. Give me your favorite scene right off the bat.
Well, see, like you said, there's tons of action in here. But there's a couple in the terms of just because you always want to add the comedy as well. So there's a scene, one of my favorites, just because Harrison Ford is trying to break out of the town where all the guys are coming after him with the knives or with the swords. And so he thinks he's gotten rid of all of them. And then some big dude in a black outfit with this big old sword starts doing his routine of and Indy just pulls out his gun and shoots him. And that's it. He just walks away like, all right, I'm done with you. I don't know why I laughed so hard at that. It's probably not that funny to most people, but I cracked up. Like, I just thought that was hilarious. But there's honestly, the scene where they get dropped in, for those, again, sorry, spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen the movie. The Ark is captured by the Germans. The Nazis do get a hold of it. And to kind of get rid of Indy and Mary, the Karen Allen character, they drop them into a pit with snakes and stuff. You can see the bottom. There's snakes all over the place. And he's definitely afraid. And the reason why I find this funny, and it's not so much because this movie was obviously made first, but if you know of Snakes on the Plane with Samuel Jackson, it's just funny to go back and watch this and watch how many times Harrison Ford complains about snakes and how much he hates snakes. And because actually there is a snake on a plane when he's rescued in the first sequence by his buddy. He's like, "Oh, that's just my pet snake," and he's like, "I hate snakes." So you start laughing because you're like, "Oh, snakes on a plane, right? I get it." But literally, he's dropped into this pit, and the only way, obviously, to keep these guys from again getting him is to fire. He's got a torch, and he keeps them away by swatting the fire at him. So then, when they drop Mary down, she comes face to face with the Cobra too, and you see her face, you see his face, and they both go running in the opposite direction. Again, maybe not as funny to some people. I find that kind of stuff hilarious. I like sight gags and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff makes me laugh. But I mean, again, this movie just has so much. As my buddy Handy said there, Mister Fingers. Sorry, we're using our stage names. No. we you find yourself honestly throughout just there is literally one action scene after another. Like I said, first sequence, he's trying to get the Ark. That's where he first encounters the German, which I call the German, Mister
Mhm.
Was it Holt, Mister Holt, whatever is how you pronounce the name.
Doctor. Oh man, see now I feel bad.
Holt, HOHT. It's like Dr. Hot, whatever the hell the guy's name is, right? So he encounters him first. Then so you have that sequence of stuff. Then again, they get away. There's a thing where the truck explodes. He thinks Mary has perished. So you have that whole sequence. Then you come to find out later Mary is not. And so I mean, like as Mr. Fingers said, this is one of those kind of complete films that really takes you on the whole ride. It's got your adventure, your romance, your comedy, your anything you could look for. And so those are just a few. I don't want to take too much time with that, but those are just a few of the scenes that I find that I like. But believe me, there's many more to talk about this movie. Mr. Fingers.
Well, I have to give you this one right here. The Germans have taken off. They've somehow or another recaptured the Ark. He's infiltrated the camp. He's found the location of the Ark. They have figured out where the Ark is. They're taking off in this giant caravan. He winds up fighting his way from the back of the Dukes and a Half truck to the front, some kind of way. Yeah. They throw him over the hood and try and run him over. And he monkey bars his way underneath this Deuce and a Half truck, which is moving at full speed, out the back, comes back around, shoots the one guy, throws him out the door, knocks the other guy out, and takes over the truck. That for me was probably my second favorite scene. You already talked about my first. Scene with the swordsman, but that was I was like, yo, because no way. If that was me, I'd have just been a run over archaeologist. Archaeologist dies in bizarre truck crash. That's what would have been my head.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
But you're right about all the action, the adventure, the very first scene actually when he goes in and has to run from the giant boulder, yes. and even when he trips the booby trap and the spikes come out, and you see, I mean, it was also kind of ahead of its time in that it wasn't uber gory, but there were some things that you saw in that movie that you generally didn't see even in a horror movie when the spikes come out with a dead body on it. The closing scene at the end, the climax of the movie, when they open the Ark and all of the Nazis are melted by the spirits coming out of the
melt off. Yeah, you're like, oh.
Yeah, they actually, when it aired on network television for the longest time, they would edit that scene.
Oh, really?
Because it was too much for television. Because movies would come on network television before in the land of before HBO, Netflix, Hulu, and streaming services, boys and girls. Right. Yes, they actually used to show blockbuster movies on network television, but they used to have to chop them all the way up. And sometimes it didn't make sense because it cut like half of a major scene out of a movie. But they edited that scene because it was considered at that point way too gory for television, you know, and which is funny in comparison to, I mean,
the stuff you see now, you're just like, whoa, wait a minute.
He's like, did I just see that on TV? Really? Okay. All right. I'm just gonna keep that pushing. But I think that this movie was, and the reason that I said that it was a complete movie was because it had a plot that that didn't have any holes in it. Like there were no holes in the plot. The action was consistent. All of the scenes and the way that everything was cut together. I mean, there may have been a blooper here or there, but the way that the movie was cut together, there weren't any gaps in, okay, what this guy was over here, now he's over here, or where did this guy come from? We don't even know his backstory and the plot. And just there was always enough adventure to keep you going, from the initial scene to the bar fight when he goes to find Marion, to I mean the drinking scene before that, the drinking challenge before that. To the bar fight.
Where she takes out the big guy by out drinking him. And he falls off his chair.
I mean, and even in this movie, we were given Spielberg gave us something that would become a trademark for all of the Raiders movies, where the flight was tracked across the map.
Oh, yeah,
as he was flying. Then that became the trademark. And every Indiana Jones movie after that, except for I haven't seen that last one. Although I've heard I'm probably not missing anything. The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but that became the trademark with the map and
showing.
We're not even, dude. And then on top of that, we're not even gonna not talk about John Williams, the great John Williams. That movie was made
phenomenal. Yeah.
That movie was made just as much by its score as it was the action on a movie. Things about a blockbuster. Your score has really got to go with your. If the two don't go together, you're going to lose something in the translation there. I mean, perfect example: Star Wars, Superman, E.T. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean,
which is all John Williams' production. So
there you go. I actually saw a video. Side note: I actually saw a video where John Williams was conducting this. There was a symphony concert, and John Williams came out as a surprise guest conductor, and he did the Imperial March theme and the theme. Yes, he did the Imperial March and the Raiders theme, and got a standing ovation from both the audience and the orchestra.
It was two of the best, right?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, even to this day, anytime you see like a cheesy scene in The Simpsons or Family Guy or one of these goofy comedies, when somebody goes on an adventure through the backyard, they immediately start playing Raiders of the Lost Ark. So this movie has transcended generations, and would not be complete though. Casting above all.
Well, for sure,
Mr. Harrison Ford.
You got to have the lead, right? You got to have the guy.
Your lead has got to be on point, and they couldn't have picked a more perfect person. I think his role as Han Solo just kind of sealed the deal. Well, because I can't think of anybody that would have played that role any more perfectly than Harrison Ford.
No, at that time, and again, he had the two Star Wars movies under his belt before he did this one. And again, obviously, Lucas was a great friend of Spielberg. So I'm sure that, when you read about past, Harrison Ford had worked with Lucas in American Graffiti, or, before that. So I'm sure Harrison was always on their radar for something like this. And it's funny because when you look at him, you show the scene in the classroom, he's, it's almost like he's Clark Kent. He's got the glasses, the part, the hair, he's the archaeology professor, the nerdy looking guy. Then all of a sudden he gets out on this adventure and he's Buff McGuff, he's got his leather jacket, his hat, he's all of a sudden he becomes Mr. Sexy, and it's all the. But what's interesting about this movie that I think in terms of formula, when you start talking about movies that, and I'll explain what I mean. The movie, in a way, if you've seen other movies, it is kind of formulaic, but I think because it was so early on, it's more of a trendsetter in that regard, because you've got the hero, the love interest, the best friend, the villain, and you have it's like that became a formulaic thing with big adventure movies. because they have all of that. Go watch any movie after 1981, like you said, after Raiders. Big Trouble in Little China with Kurt Russell. Go
Mm-hmm.
watch anything like that, and you'll
Romancing
see
the
that.
Stone,
Right. Well, perfect example.
which was
Actually.
a flat out rip off.
But another series I love, Jewel of the Nile, was the sequel. But like you said, you got the hero, the love interest, the best friend, the what they're going after, the villain who's trying to stop them, and the whole bit. And I think they do it well. That's like you said. This is one of those movies grossed over $330 million. It was the biggest grossing movie of 1981. $330 million worldwide. So you should show you the appeal for one, and just again a complete as my associate here has so succinctly put, it's a complete movie, and it truly is. You do have everything, even and again, I know they always say about there's no harming of animals during the filming of this film, but there's a scene where the little monkey eats the poison date, and then you just see him laying out, and you're like, man, poor monkey, he was hungry, he just died,
right,
because he ate the poison date.
yeah.
So but this movie definitely has everything. That is,
it does, and it introduced us to at least one character that you see through a couple. A couple of the Indiana Jones movies in Sala.
Yeah, his best friend, John Rhys Davis.
John Rhys Davis, and Indy, and like it's just. I am the monarch of this sea. Exactly. Like I loved that dude, man.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, how can you not though? That's the point. He's the best friend is always the likable, jovial guy, right? But he doesn't have necessarily have to be a big guy, but he's jovial. He's funny. You know what I mean? He's got the resources. He knows how to get Indy to where he's going. It's like that guy knows everything. He's the everyman, but he's the best friend. And
yes,
again, it's always played by a nice supporting character that you go, oh, I remember that guy from that movie, or I remember that guy from that other movie, or he's that guy from that. And that's same with John Rhys Davis.
And he's the guy that always manages to somehow, even though he loses the hero and the hero is almost at the brink of death, manages to show up out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Hop in the car, my friend.
Right. Exactly. This is what I'm saying.
Not to get too far forward, but like in what was it, Last Crusade, where he rides up on these horses. He's got 6 horses riding at full gallop. Indy, and he tips his hat before he gets I love that guy, man.
Yeah,
and then of course you can't not speak to the villains. The villains were played perfectly. Had Paul Freeman as Renee Belloc, who was Indy's rival.
Yes.
And you did mention Major Todt, the Ronald Lacey, the Gestapo agent.
I mean, I'm telling you, that guy, for those of you who may not think that Germans looked very scary, this guy just had that, and again, he looked like a little twerp, but he had that menacing look on his face that when he walked into every scene that he was in, you were just like, all right, this guy kind of scares me a little bit. I don't know what to do here.
But he nailed every scene he was in.
He did. He really did. Like I said, if you want a bad guy, there's a great, people, supporting characters, obviously they're necessary to any movie. But as you said, when you get the right guy for like that guy, whoever that actor is, like you just said his name a minute ago, he was perfect for that. Like, I don't care what, like you said, I don't really see too many other people who could have pulled it off the way he did, because he had the right look and just that stare. And just, every time you saw this guy, you're like, this man, I'm a little afraid of this dude. I'm not going to lie. But definitely the trick with how they burned the thing into his hand, I thought was, as far as special effects go, for those of you not familiar, in the bar fight, the reason they're there is they're trying to steal. He's trying to get Mary's little talisman she has or whatever, and it ends up burning during the fight. So when he goes to grab it, literally the imprint is in his hand because it burned him so bad. Which comes to play later in the movie. You'll see he shows his hand. You see he's got the whole metal literally on his hand.
Right.
But yeah, just that kind of like detail and the kind of that's the kind of stuff that, like you said, makes this movie. And I'll be honest with you, it's a movie obviously I saw as a child. It came out in 81. I was 8 years old. So I probably saw it a few years later on home video when it started, when they started having home video. VHS for all you older folks out there, the VHS tapes.
So maybe even a Betamax. How about that?
Well, I had a Beta machine, actually. I watched a lot of stuff on Betamax. I always thought the sound quality was better, personally. That's just that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so I mean, I didn't see this probably till I was, a little bit older on home video, and it's not a movie that when you look at it, you go, man, it's a great '80s movie, but like it's a movie I hadn't seen in years. So going back, to watch it again and experience, like you said, all the drama, the action, all of a sudden he's swimming he gets off the pirate boat, he swims all the way to the German boat just to sneak
Mhm.
on to follow the ark to where they're going. Like just stuff like that you don't remember, from the movie itself. Things, little scenes and little things. I just feel like for action adventure films, like you said, this has to be one of the best of the '80s in terms of that,
Absolutely.
and that's the reason why we're doing this. We're trying to get you, our viewers, for you watching out there, to fall in love with these movies again, or to go ahead and take a look if you hadn't seen this movie, and realize what you missed. Because to me personally, I don't know how Mr. Fingers feels. The '80s is where I grew up. I went from age 7 to age 17 during the '80s, and I saw thousands of movies between that time with the invention of, like you said, videotape. You could rent movies. All of a sudden, blockbusters and video stores were opening. So I literally took advantage. I saw thousands of movies in the '80s easily, and I think it's one of the best decades for movies, in terms of just genres and things and performance and that sort of thing. So it'll always be one of my favorites. So to be able to bring this to you, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it or you haven't seen it in a long time, definitely go on and check it out.
It is definitely. I agree with you. It's definitely a must watch. I'm a little older than you. I was 9 at the turning of the decade. Turned
Mhm.
10 that year. So from age 9 to age 20, well, 20, I was
Right, right,
20
right.
by the end of the decade. But movies that came out during the '80s, if you're watching any movie now and you're like, oh my God, how did they do that? You can thank the movies of the '80s. I mean, if you really want to reach, you can go back to say, oh, Star Wars, because there was a lot of things they did in Star Wars that was just
Well,
way ahead of its time. But just the way that they put movies together and they learned to tell stories, and uh, they learned to tell the stories so that they drew you in during the '80s. I mean, we were rattling off. I mean, what other decade gave you a group of people like the Brat Pack
yeah, true.
and the two Coreys?
The two Corys, yes, the two
Yeah,
Corys.
ironically, because I was watching, irony, because I watched the film with Corey Haim, which we'll discuss on another show at another
Very well.
time.
That's right.
Actually, he was in quite a few films in the '80s. Just the
Well, that
action.
was that was significant. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and not
definitely.
just not just clunkers. I mean, blockbusters,
Yeah,
uh, special effects, setting movies that set tones for other movies that come. Like we said, Raiders of the Lost Ark was kind of a combination of action adventure with a little bit of humor thrown in, and
yeah,
then your hero was the guy that had the skills and the survival skills of like Indiana Jones is like a precursor to Jason Bourne almost. You know what I
well, yeah,
mean?
guys like that, exactly. Yeah,
Not a situation that he got into that he could not get out of
right,
miraculously, but still get out of.
right, exactly.
So, oh yeah, so we will be coming at you with more movies, with more movies and more reviews and things of that nature that you all will absolutely love. But we're gonna get back to this one because we're getting all nostalgic right now. I'm
Right,
getting ready to break out my '80s mixtape
right.
and
There you
throwing
go.
some parachute pants. Oh wait, I heard that in a podcast title somewhere. Anyway,
Right,
uh,
for sure.
I mean, you had Harrison Ford. There was this look. He has this thing, and he did it. You notice he did it in Star Wars also, but he would get this look. Like when he got this look on his face, you knew he was getting ready to kick somebody's ass.
Right.
Like he was like a combination of a biting of a lip and his you get that grit on his face, and you knew it was coming. Um, oh, funny thing you mentioned about the snakes. Not the snakes. Funny thing you mentioned about the scene, your favorite scene with the swordsman. That
Yeah.
scene was actually supposed to be a whole deal with the whip. He was supposed to break out the
Okay.
whip and disarm him and then knock him out or something like that. But everybody on set, because they filmed this movie on location overseas, and people were having trouble their digestive tracts were having trouble adjusting to the local cuisine. So everybody was feeling
sure.
kind of sick, including himself. So he was just
Oh,
like, he was like, pow. And they were like, I love it. We're keeping it.
right. Keep that.
So that whole thing just happened on it happened on a fluke. That wasn't the way that scene was supposed to go. But it turned out to be one of the greatest moments. If you look up any video compilation, you say greatest moments in cinematic history, it is always in just about every one of those compilations. Because it's the last thing you expect. It's like, oh, you got a knife? I can't fight him with a knife. Oh, I got a gun. Sit down, pow. There we go.
No, I get it. I crack up. I cracked as soon as I saw it. Like, that's hilarious. Not funny, but to me, it's hilarious.
Yeah, and it kind of, and in a way, I think another reason that it was so popular was because at the time the movie was released, bear in mind when that movie was released, we were 4 decades removed from World War II,
Yeah,
and
this takes place in 1936. So yeah, it's not Hitler was in power. Obviously, the Fuhrer, as they make mention to him many times in the film.
right, and and there were still a goodly amount of our World War II veterans that were still with us.
Yes.
And so in a way, it kind of appealed to them to go back and relive having a hero to vanquish the
The evil
Nazis.
Nazi part, yeah, for sure.
Good Lord, it's actually a kind of a scary thought. You and I are just only about a decade younger than those guys were when Raiders came out. And most of those guys are gone now because it's been 30, 40 years. But it was a classic, very classic. It was very simple. Good versus evil. The bad guys want to do something to take over the world, and this one good guy is our only hope. And he comes through in spectacular fashion. What say you, sir?
In terms of what? I'm sorry. What was it?
Just the appeal of the movie. What do you think was the main appeal of? Now, for folks our age, it was, whoa, oh, snakes, whoa, the whip under the truck, oh, special effects. But
I think that's it. Is that it has everything, and I don't mean to say this in a sense of like, but just in dealing with the younger generation now, everything is a lot more sped up, like TikTok and all that. They want their stuff quick. They don't want long, drawn out sequences. They want bam, 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 short attention. But with this movie, it's a 2-hour film. It's like 155 on the running time. They flesh out the story. They flesh out everything. They go through. You know what I'm saying? The scenes are not just the action's not just boom boom boom. He kicks the butt of 3 bad guys and it's over. The scenes go on for a long enough time where you really invest in what's going on and you see the struggle of him trying to get away from these guys at the different moments in the film. And I think that's what's important. That's what I really like because if nothing else, I like a good fleshed out story. And I like to be able to sit down when I'm watching the film and I can put together like what's happening, because it's always amazing to me when you watch a movie like this. As you said, these are stunts they do now from like 1980 when this movie was filmed. Look at the stunts that they do now in modern day with camera tricks and the different things that you can do. This was revolutionary with what, like you said, he crawls under a moving car, comes up the back end of it, comes back over the top, and takes over driving the car from the guy. Like that's the kind of stuff you see now.
Right.
They were doing that 40 years ago doing this movie. So those are the kind of things you look for, and you sit there and go, man, this movie really, again, I don't want to overstate, but I just think when you look at films that give you everything, this one definitely has it. And again, it gives you a pretty lady, Karen Allen, a very attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know we're guys, so we look at that sort of thing. I know, but
it played into that. It played into because that was kind of the theme.
Even his enemy wanted, like, when he had her trapped in the thing, he was all like, "Here, put this dress on. I want to see you in this." And then he proceeds to watch her change in the mirror as she's changing in the other thing. You can see, he's all like, "Yeah, here we go," blah blah. But that's the thing. You've got the the two men essentially, the guy with the previous relationship at Harrison Ford, the guy who wants to keep her just as a possession, because to him that's all she really is. He even says it on a thing. He's like, "Well, she's with me, she's mine. I think I have earned her. You didn't earn jack." But anyways, that's a different story. But yeah, so I mean, you have all those dynamics. Again, leading man personified, obviously Harrison Ford. We saw it throughout his career with the things he has done, and he plays this role perfectly. Like you said, there's nobody else. That's why I thought when it came time to cast his father, and they cast Sean Connery,
Perfect.
could there not have been a better guy to play his father than Sean Connery, James Bond himself? So I mean,
Right?
this is what you're talking
The,
about.
the
Here, right?
irony, and I don't think a lot of people picked up on that. You got James Bond playing the father of Harrison Ford, who at that point was the biggest adventure guy in cinema until I guess maybe Jason Bourne came along and then they rebooted James Bond.
Yeah, it is right. Daniel Craig maybe became the new whatever, but yeah, it's just this is exactly. Yeah, no, you have to love that. That's all I'm trying to say
Oh
about
God,
that.
those two together. We're gonna have to. I don't know if that's an '80s movie or not, but we might have. If it is, we definitely have to get on that because my favorite scene there is when they find out that they both have at some point seen the same woman.
Same woman, yeah.
And
Exactly.
he's like, "What do you want from me, Junior? I'm as human as the next guy." He's like, "Dad, I was the next guy." Like, that's my favorite.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta love that, right? Father and son
but
competing for the same woman.
right, but if you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, like Han Solo put Harrison Ford on the map for a
Sure,
lot of
absolutely.
people that didn't know American Graffiti.
Well, yeah, I mean, this has to be
But
what, maybe only his fifth or sixth movie at this
right,
point.
but
But
the the one that put him on the top is definitely Raiders of the Lost Ark.
for
That
sure,
was
for
the
sure.
that was the movie that made him a megastar. Han Solo made him a star.
Yes,
Raiders made him
a
a
megastar.
megastar. And then
Oh yeah.
from there, he went on to Patriot Games movies when he
Oh,
played the
that's right.
president.
Right. You did, yeah. Clear present danger, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, get off my plane.
Get off my plane. My
And then
favorite, of course, The
go
Fugitive
ahead.
was probably my favorite Harrison Ford
Oh
movie.
yeah,
The Fugitive.
yeah,
That's a great one.
yeah. It's like it's just like Michael. It's almost like the equivalent that I could come up with is Michael Jackson broke off from his brothers, and he did Off the Wall, and that was a great
Right.
album. But Thriller was the one that made him Mike.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so Star Wars, Harrison Ford, right? But then
Right.
yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Ooh, Harrison Ford. Now all of a sudden, his agent can't keep up with the phone calls. And here's a little
Right.
fun fact piece of trivia I got for you right here.
Okay, I'm
Um,
listening.
Harrison Ford was not he wasn't the first choice.
Okay. Who was?
The first choice was a guy that was already relatively popular and was very well known for his very bushy mustache and driving a Ferrari around Hawaii in a flowered shirt. It was Magnum PI himself, Tom
Selleck, huh?
Selleck.
Ah,
And the only reason that Tom couldn't do it was because he had scheduling conflicts with the show. But there were the other people that were considered for the role. Check this list: Bill Murray, Nick Nolte, Steve Martin. I don't know that would have worked. Chevy
I don't know about
Chase,
that
really?
one either. Yeah, I don't know about that one. See, Chevy
Chevy,
Chase either. Comics. Yeah.
Jack Nicholson. I think Jack
Mhm.
was a little too old for the role at that point already. Could be wrong.
No, yeah,
Jeff
Jack doesn't fit there either. Yeah.
Jeff Bridges, Sam Elliott, and Harry Hamlin. Out of those, I could maybe see Nick Nolte, Sam Elliott,
Sam Elliott for sure. Yeah, I think Sam Elliott would have been.
and Jeff Bridges. But then Sam would have had to been an archaeology professor from Texas or something.
Yeah, I know. He's just got that "come here, me ho." He's got that big, deep, long Southern drawl. No matter what he does, every part
With that,
because that's just
with,
his accent. With that
with
big
that,
mustache he's
with
got.
that
Yeah.
big mustache.
He's like, I don't
You
think I
say
want to
you're a
talk
not.
to you right now.
You say you're a Nazi. You must be a special kind of stupid.
That's right, exactly.
I could see him in that role.
Oh no,
He
for
would have
sure.
been,
That's why I
but
said
he would have had to rewrite the part about the snakes too. Like
I don't like snakes, me ho.
he just would have shot them all.
Probably. That's very true. That's just Sam Elliott, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about how past connections just lead to opportunities, and he already had the link with George Lucas, and they were like, well, let's try this guy and see where it goes. We've already seen him as Han Solo, and boom,
Yeah.
there it is. Led to a
Oh
four
yeah.
movie franchise and an incredible career. And then Karen Allen, I couldn't think of anybody. The only other person that I could think would have fit in that role would have been Margot Kidder.
Right. Superman's girl.
But that's the caveat, because she already had either her or Carrie Fisher. But then that would have been too much of the crossing of the lines with the franchises,
Yeah,
But
it's Star Wars on with archaeologists.
right. But I definitely think that Margot Kidder could have played that role as well, because she had the same look. She had the
Yeah, very
same
similar. Yes, yes.
they looked similar, and they both had that same independent, I don't need you attitude. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, for
Until
sure.
so so mm, and then we're not. I don't know. I mean, dude, I'm getting excited. I'm excited to be. I'm very happy to be here. That's the second time I
Right,
said that.
exactly. The second time. Right.
It's a great movie, and there's so many moving parts that are a part of this movie that it's really hard to wrap it all up into one, almost without talking about the entire series, or at least the first three, because a lot of people don't count the last one, even though it does kind of tie things up in a bow. But it's I can't say anything more about it other than it's just an absolutely incredible movie. And the absolute last thing that I expected was
Mhm.
how the climax of the movie. I won't say how the
Right.
movie ended. How the movie ended, that didn't surprise me at all.
Well,
But
no.
the climax of the movie shocked me. I mean, domineering Nazis set to take over the earth, killed by spirits from the Ark of the Covenant.
Well, that's the great part about that plot too. At the end, the way because he knew. He said he even told him, "I think you're just as curious to see if it, what it looks like and how it works too, Doctor Jones." And he really was, like, But the fact that he knew that they were going to open it, and they're him and Karen Allen are tied to the tape to the pole or whatever. Well, when these guys actually do finally open it and their faces start to melt off, like I think that's a critical thing. Like Indy was in this, he had selfish reasons for being in on this, regardless of what anyone thinks. This guy was, archaeology teacher by day, but he was serious into this sort of thing. From the beginning, you get that. When he gets the first little thing that the Germans stole back, from him. What I forgot what they called it. My apologies. But yeah, like this was something for him that was, and that's why I say plot points and story is that Indy probably isn't the nicest guy in
No.
theory, but you root for him. You know what
Yes.
I'm
All
saying?
day.
Like he's not the nicest dude, but oh my God, this guy's he's a hero. You see him doing this, you see him doing that. And that's my point about that is that as a character, that's where Harrison Ford brings to that role. Because you could believe, especially watching him in Star Wars, that he could be, let's just say the word, he could be kind of a prick, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you root for the guy. So you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
He's a
so it's
prick.
hard.
He's a prick, but he's our prick,
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Because you're like, I'm kind of rooting for this guy, but he's kind of an a-hole. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
But that's the character. That's him playing the character the way that he did, which is perfect Harrison Ford. So that's why I say I think as far as acting performance as well, there probably wasn't too many other people who could have done that. So I agree with you on that point, sir.
Yeah, no, no way. I don't think, in retrospect, looking at the list of names, I mean, the guys that I said that probably could have pulled the role off, they probably could have, but would the franchise have been
As
as
successful or would they
successful?
made as many? Correct.
Right.
I think Harrison totally carried that. Obviously, like yeah.
Yeah, it was like you couldn't get enough of him once you saw it,
Right. Correct.
and every movie, and then they tried to one up every new movie. They tried to one up his adventures. They just tried to take him even further. But the thing
Right.
that you mentioned about him being curious about the Ark of the Covenant, I wanted to touch back on that. Even though he was curious, there was a theme throughout the entire franchise. He always had a very healthy respect for the
Oh,
artifacts that
sure.
he was sent to get. And this
Right.
was in this particular case, it's like it saved his life. It's
Well,
like,
yeah.
you know, but always a very healthy always a very healthy respect for, hey man, I just wanted to see it. I don't necessarily know
Right.
if I want to look in it because I don't know if that's a good. Oh, y'all doing the whole ritual? I'm just gonna take a nap. Y'all let me know when you're done.
Right. Exactly.
Go sleep, baby. Go to sleep. Uh, and I think that's part of the part of him that we root for.
Yeah.
You know, because you got the butthead over here, or as a colleague of mine uses the term, butt nugget.
All right. That's something totally different. But all right.
Yes, we know. But as a guy who could be considered a bit of a jerk, then there's this human part of him that, like,
Yeah.
the part of him that swam across the sea to jump on a German submarine
Right.
to find Marion,
Yeah.
and to rescue, and to keep her safe,
Sure.
and that had the respect for the artifact that none of the villains did not have.
Right. Well, the
So
villains never do. They just want it for the gain, the monetary gain or whatever. They just want the
the
power.
power,
That's always the thing, right? The good guy, has some sort of love for the artifact or whatever he's chasing, and the
hmm
bad guys just want the monetary gain or the fame
uh,
that comes with it.
not well,
It's like
yeah, or the power,
formulaic.
because they were going to use the Ark of the Covenant and march and take over the
Well,
entire
right.
world.
He wanted it to. Well, of course, that was. We all know what happened with Hitler there. Yeah. So
Yeah. So and wow, I never knew how much this movie had made, but
yeah,
$335 million. And this was another,
worldwide.
and this is, back in our time, Nick and
That's a
I,
lot of money.
yeah,
That's
back
a
in,
ton
but
of.
that's a lot of money, but also back, another thing that was great about it, but back in our time, again, before streaming services and Netflix and all that good stuff,
Yeah.
um, you could tell how good a movie was by how long it stayed in the theater.
Yeah. Raiders was what,
And
over a year.
movies would stay in the. I know this is hard to believe for some of you, but movies would stay in the theater for well over a year.
Yeah.
Star Wars, I think, ran for two. In my hometown, Star Wars ran for 2 years.
Oh, a couple years
Et
at least. Yeah.
Et ran for almost 3. Raiders of the Lost Ark ran for 2. Raiders of the Lost Ark was in the theater around the corner from my house for 2 solid years. And not only was it in the theater for 2 years, it was in the theater for 2 years and played on 2 screens in the same theater for two
Right.
years.
Yeah. Exactly.
So not only can you, I mean, now when say a Marvel movie comes out, they might play it on 3 or 4 screens, but it's only out for like
A month
3
or
or 4
so.
months.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
month or
if
whatever.
a month, maybe 2, if that.
Hmm.
Because the ticket prices are so much higher, so they could recoup the revenue faster. But
True.
not only that, it goes to stream, and the streaming companies pay a rack-a-tang of money for the rights to stream it. So
Yeah.
there are different ways for them to recoup their money now from that. But I mean, 2 years? Come on, man. Could you imagine? Like, let's see. That would be like Avengers Endgame still being in the theaters right now.
Sure.
And
And
Avengers,
again, if there wasn't home video, it might be.
yeah,
That started,
yeah.
with putting things on tape and letting you. And remember, I don't know if people remember this. You probably do. When VHS tape first came out, they were like $90. Like a new movie coming out on VHS could cost upwards of $100 just for a VHS tape.
Yeah,
Like,
because
just think about that. Like, just because it was a new medium, nobody, you had to buy the player, which was a couple hundred, and then you could buy movies. But like I said, they were 90, $100 when they first started with
yeah,
this home video market. It's like, whew,
dude, remember when CD players were $400 and $500 a pop?
exactly.
And now you can
And,
buy a combination. Now you can buy a combination VHS DVD player, and the DVD player also reads the CDs. You get them for like $15 on Amazon.
on anywhere, go to
Yeah,
a
that's
pawn shop
crazy.
and pick one up easily. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I want you to chew on that, ladies and gentlemen. I know a lot of you don't. A lot of you new agers don't have CD players anymore, but CD players easily brand new cost $400 and $500,
back in
and
their
the
day when
CDs were $20 and $25 a piece because
exactly.
and
You knew
that played into why we didn't have the home video yet, because the technology was still new, So it took a good while for them to figure out how to transfer the stuff
Yeah.
in mass to video cassettes. So it would be a year. Also, the process by which they formatted the movie for television, that's why it took
Yeah,
a
that too.
year, a year or two to get on HBO. The rule of thumb was the movie was in the theater. It was about a year after the movie was out of the theater that it
That
was
you
on
got it.
HBO, that you
Yeah.
saw it on HBO, and that
Yeah.
you could rent it.
Yes.
And then that kind of got cut back to about 6 months or so. And
Yeah,
now it's like,
as the market grew for that and home video became a popular medium, you could even get movies that were only released 3 months ago that started showing up on home video, just
yeah,
because it had died at the theater, so they want to jump on the home video market. They just throw it out there, be like, "Hey, new release, new release, new release."
yeah. So, and then too, now when they're filming a movie, they format it for big screen, they format it for television, they format it for and they format it for streaming, so that all that is done up front now. So
Yeah, exactly.
it doesn't take as long.
Correct. And
But
and now we're even getting movies that are released directly to streaming. So
yes.
figure that. So
Oh God,
we've
yeah.
come a
I
long
mean,
way, ladies and gentlemen, a long way.
we have. It's getting to a point, dude. That begs a question, which makes me kind of sad. Are we in fear of maybe not having movie theaters in another
Oh, that would crush
15
me.
or
I
20?
hear you. I know. I fear that. I do.
I mean, it would crush me. Not that I'm a movie going person now, but I think that the theaters will stop charging us $100 at the. Well, I know why they do that.
Well, that's
Fun
yeah.
fact,
That's
ladies and gentlemen, the movie theaters do not make a whole lot of money off the movies
well,
themselves. They
they
make the
don't.
money
Those
off
are
the
the
concessions.
distributors. Exactly. I worked in the theater business for 3 years. That's how we made our money off the
Same
large
here.
popcorn. Here's a medium bag. Here for a quarter more, you get a large. That's how we made our profits. Everything. That's why concessions cost so much, because yes, it's the only way we make money.
Yeah, but there's nothing. I
The
mean,
movie money goes to the companies. The concession money we keep. So yeah.
yeah, there's nothing like going and sitting in the movie theater. I know it's a different experience now with people being hyper aware of people's states of
Yeah.
health with COVID,
Sure. Still
with
the
the
fun,
advent of
best thing
COVID.
to do though.
But there's no experience like going to the theater and buying the
Correct.
popcorn and going in the vapor lock because like, ooh, I want a pretzel too and some jujubes and everything. It's like all the candies that you can't get without going to a specific candy store.
Right.
So you wind up spending $30-$40 for tickets and $100 at the concession stand and maybe $200 if you go to one of those places where they take your order and bring the food to you
Oh,
with
not
reclining
yeah.
chairs.
That's too bougie for me, man. I know. I
But
just want to buy my popcorn and drink and sit down and watch the movie.
oh, all day, man. But the only problem is, this is listen. I just figured something else out, and I used to work in the theater as well. It's a trick. It's a trap, like Admiral Akbar says. It's a trap. You get the popcorn, right? But then you go sit in the auditorium and you watch 30 minutes worth of previews. Who in their right mind is going to hold a hot, steaming, fresh bag of hot, buttered, delicious smelling popcorn for 30 minutes and not touch it?
Well, see, that's the trick, man. You gotta plan that right. You get there maybe about 15 minutes before. So you get your popcorn and drink, you sit down, you get through the previews, which are like you said, 20 minutes or so to 25 minutes. And by that time, you're probably about half done with your popcorn and drink. You take a small break, you start watching the movie. And then about 15, 20 minutes in, when you kind of get the lay of the land, what the movie could be about, you go back to eating your treats as you watch the movie. So you finish your stuff maybe about halfway through the film and you feel satisfied. That's just my trick. I don't know about anybody else. That's how I
Well,
do it.
see, you actually sat down and scientifically plotted it out.
That's
I
right.
don't get it. I don't I don't go to the movies that often.
Oh,
So for me, movie theater popcorn, I'm going to tell you what the last movie was I
I
went to
take
see.
that seriously, my friend. That movie theater popcorn is the bomb.
Yes,
It's my
sir. Yes,
favorite. It's my
no,
favorite.
that I don't care. Orville Redenbacher, Act Two, none of them, Butter Lovers, none of them have anything. I don't know what kind of crack cocaine they put in the butter syrup, but it
Right.
is more delicious than anything else. Uh,
Exactly.
to date myself, the last movie that my wife and I went to see in theater was a Medea funeral And I want to
Really?
say that was close to the end of 2018.
Wow.
That's the last time we've been in the movie theater.
Really? Okay. That's
We
just by choice? Like you guys just didn't see anything you wanted to see on the big screen, or you just don't really go to the
I really
movies?
don't know, because we had a tradition where we would go on our anniversary, which is in November, our wedding anniversary.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, we would normally go, we would make like a weekend of it, regardless of where the day actually fell. We would make a weekend of it. We'd go
Mhm.
see a movie. We'd catch whatever comedian was in town that coming weekend.
Oh, okay,
Man, it
sure.
seems something about. I'm just going to tell you, if you like comedians, go see them at the end of the year. For some reason, that's when they really like to come through my hometown.
Hmm.
Because we've seen Kevin Hart, Wanda Sykes, Trix, Ryan Davis. I forget who else we went to see. There's a couple other people we went to see, all on our anniversary.
Okay.
Absolutely hilarious. And it's always around November. But anyway, we would do the movie thing and the comedian thing, and then we would do dinner. Sometimes we would do it all together in one day. Sometimes we break it up. But that's always been a thing for us. We just go once a year.
Sure.
And we just haven't been. I don't know why we didn't go in 2019, but I guess we should have, because we haven't been to see a movie since.
Right. I haven't. I don't know what happened.
So, yeah. So, I wish I could have seen Raiders with the missus. Just that's one of those movies I wish I could have shared with her, first time experience. But at that point, I was 11 and she would have been 13, and we were living in two different states at that point. So that might have been a little awkward.
There you go. There it is.
Anything to put a stamp on this. I did want to talk about one other character that did get brought into the franchise, that got brought into the franchise at the beginning of the series and wound up becoming becoming a secondary character, and that was Indy's friend Marcus Brody,
Oh, Marcus Brody.
the museum curator. He had a very small part in the first movie, which I
Denholm
paid
Elliott.
which I paid no attention to at that point until he
Right.
showed up again in
Subsequent films. Right.
the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and
Yeah.
the Last Crusade, because he was not in.
Temple of Doom.
Yeah, for some reason, all of the characters from the
Well, neither
first
was
movie.
Karen Allen. Right.
Well, we know why that
Right.
was, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If for those of you that don't know, the second movie had Steven Spielberg's wife. They got married.
Capshaw.
They got married,
Yeah.
and he gave her a part in the movie. He wrote a part.
In the
They had
movie,
that wrote a part just for her. So it kind of put the
Yeah.
kibosh on all of the other regular characters. And I think this one took place
Yes.
before. This one took place before Raiders. Also, that was how they retconned the story to make it line up.
No, but again, you wanted to Denholm Elliott, for those who don't know, was an old English actor. He came to the States, obviously did movies here. It's probably most popular for Trading Places, for playing the butler
Yes.
for doing so very funny man, though. Like, he was always funny in the movies I saw him in. But yeah, his character is a smaller one. He's the one who goes to Indy and tells him about this, and he's central to the first movie, as it were. Even though he had a very small part, but very central to the whole plot.
But then winds up coming back in the Last Crusade and having a much larger part of the movie, and is absolutely hilarious comic relief.
There you
So
go.
we see the return. We see the return. We see not only the return of Salah, we also see the return of Marcus Brody, and then as an added bonus, we get Sir Sean Connery. So
then you get the day is mine.
Yes, Junior, take a deep breath. Oh, in the Latin, Jehovah begins with an I. Oh dear. I tell you, I love those movies. And so does Nick. And that is why we are here today, ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you Popcorn and Parachute Pants, an 80s movie podcast. Today's movie of choice being Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't think there's anything much more that we can say to further pay this movie any more homage or give it any more roses than it already has been given.
Agreed. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it.
Absolutely.
It's on a streaming service.
Definitely. If you do get an opportunity, if they have a release, missed opportunity last year for 40th anniversary movie in a limited theater release.
Yeah, true, man.
But then COVID, so who knows? Plus that it's not like Spielberg and Lucas and all of them are hurting for money where they had to.
They don't need the money, right? They don't need the
right.
money.
So, but if you do get a chance to go see it in movie, I highly recommend it. It's a great movie to see on a big screen, especially with those high tech sound systems and all of that.
Exactly.
But if that's it, then that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for this episode of Popcorn and Parachute Pants. I am Mr. Fingaz. This gentleman over here is Mr. Nick Rosario. We will see you so much. We will be back next week with our next episode of Popcorn and Parachute Pants. You all take care, and we'll see you then.
Have a good week.
Say hello to my little friend. Shut the chocolate.
Be sure to like and subscribe for content and more
on your new home for podcasts and independent music
on the Zagniv One Radio Network.